There is a subtle pattern that can arise within the human heart. It does not announce itself with sound. It does not cause immediate harm. It works quietly, like a river that slowly changes its course. This is not about anger or dislike. It is the steady habit of yielding to everyone, of offering a smile when your spirit feels tired, of saying yes when your inner knowing says no. It is the practice of bending for others so often that you forget the feeling of standing upright in your own space. This constant softness may appear to be a form of kindness. Yet when we look deeper, we may find it is guided by apprehension, the fear of being seen differently, of creating friction, of not being met with approval. A life directed by this apprehension is not a life of fullness. It is a state of constant reaction. You were not brought into this world to simply react. You are here to live from your own center. True compassion is not a weakness. It requires a strong foundation. A great tree does not ask for permission to take up space. A deep river does not quiet its flow for those who are afraid of its power. Yet, many people move through life making themselves smaller to ease the journey of others. When you continuously adjust your own nature to make the people around you feel at ease, that is not an act of love. It is a performance. You move away from the truth of your own being when you place external opinion above your inner awareness. The more you agree when your own truth disagrees, the more you become someone you cannot recognize. Your primary purpose is not to be liked by everyone. That is not the mission of a lifetime. You are here to express, to grow, to contribute, and to live with clear intention, to apologize for your own perspective, for your own understanding, for your own path. This is not a sign of humility. It is a form of self-abandonment. The world will not grant you the right to be authentic. This is a space you must claim from within. It is a more peaceful path to be misunderstood for who you are than to be accepted for who you are not. Genuine love and a quiet mind begin when you cease the effort of earning them from the outside world. There is a deep misconception about the nature of love. Love is not a constant availability for others to use as they please. It is not an endless agreement. Love, when it is grounded in wisdom, understands where to draw a line. It knows when its energy is best preserved. It has boundaries that protect its own light. Without these boundaries, love can become an unconscious pattern of sacrifice. This pattern, without awareness, may quietly grow into resentment. You cannot pour from a vessel that is always empty. Your inner stillness is precious. Conserve it for what is truly aligned. When you continuously absorb disrespect, when you choose silence in the face of imbalance, when you keep making room for others by diminishing your own presence, you are not acting from a noble place. You are participating in a pattern that does not serve truth. There is no wisdom in allowing a disharmonious situation to draw strength from your quiet acceptance. By being soft where clarity is needed, you allow imbalance to continue. At times, the most deeply aware action you can take is to step back, to speak a quiet truth, or to say no with complete and peaceful stillness. Strength is not about force. Strength is not a loud voice. It is not an aggressive posture. It is simply a state of being quiet, rooted and present. People may not always find your clarity comfortable, but they will sense its authenticity. In a world of much noise, those who are anchored in their own understanding hold a power that does not require an outer display. Be that. You can have a compassionate heart and still be clear in your boundaries. You can be gentle without being easily moved from your center. The two are not in opposition. They represent balance. In every moment, a choice is present. You are either choosing a path of momentary ease or a path of authentic presence. You are choosing to be seen favorably or choosing to be free. You are choosing the appearance of peace or the foundation of a lasting one. If you continue to choose softness simply to avoid friction, your life may become a story of quiet misalignment. But if you choose to stand in your own truth, even when your body trembles, even when you feel alone, you will begin to understand what it means to truly live, not in reaction, not from a place of fear, but from a conscious center, with stillness, with depth, and with a peace that no one can disrupt. Many find themselves in a state of constant adjustment to the energies around them. They offer a smile when they feel no joy. They agree when their heart is not settled. And they say yes when their whole being feels a quiet no. This outward agreeableness can appear as gentle kindness, but if you look closely, you may find it comes from a place of fear. The fear of judgment, of being misunderstood, or of being left out. The desire to please can become an unspoken agreement where you exchange your authentic self for fleeting approval. This pattern is not without consequence. It goes beyond social grace or being polite. It is like a slow erosion of the ground on which you stand. Each time you quiet your inner knowing for the comfort of another, you push your own soul a little further away. You start to reflect the expectations of others, not your own inner nature. Over time, it becomes difficult to distinguish between the performance and the truth of who you are. When your life is guided only by the comfort of others, it is as if you are acting on a stage. You are not living in alignment, you are performing a role. Your words are not born from your center, they are lines chosen to prevent friction. Your choices are not guided by wisdom, but by worry. You do not move through life with inner clarity, but with a constant awareness of external judgment. This is not peace. It is a form of quiet unease, where the discomfort is unseen but ever present. Truth does not bend to make others feel comfortable. It is simply present stable, still, and without the need for apology. You can choose to align with your truth, or you can continue to move in circles, trying to meet the expectations of every person you encounter. But it is helpful to see this. No matter how you adjust, others will have their perceptions. They will see through their own filters. The attempt to please is a journey without an end, and it will not lead to a quiet mind. The great cost of trying to please all is that you lose your connection to yourself in the process. Your inner voice grows faint, your clarity becomes clouded, and your purpose feels distant. You begin to exist based on external needs, not on what your own spirit knows to be true. And when your life is shaped by what others expect, it is no longer yours. It is a reflection of their path, not an expression of your own. Freedom begins the moment you cease to perform. It begins when you can speak what is true for you with a calm presence, when you can say no without inner conflict, and when the discomfort of others no longer determines your choices. You reclaim the space of your own existence. You start to move from your own core. At that point, life feels grounded again. Decisions begin to feel clear, and silence is no longer heavy with unspoken words, but filled with peace. So if you find yourself endlessly trying to be what others expect, it is good to pause. Take one breath and ask, who am I beneath all of these roles? When you stop adjusting and simply are, you may feel a great weight release. Your spirit does not need applause. It seeks stillness. It seeks truth. It asks you to live not as a mirror to the world, but as the quiet light you have always been. You were not born to move through life cautiously, checking if your own presence disturbs the path of another. Yet many people diminish themselves daily, not from a place of humility, but from a place of fear, the fear of being judged, of not belonging, of being misunderstood. They soften their words, dilute their clarity, and conceal their unique nature because they do not want to cause unease in others. But in doing so, they begin to live a life that is not in alignment with their core. They become a less vibrant version of themselves, always waiting for external permission to be fully present. There is no great virtue in apologizing for being who you are. To hold a clear perspective does not make you difficult. To have standards does not make you rigid. To establish boundaries does not make you unkind. These are not character flaws. They are the natural expressions of self-awareness. And yet, somewhere on life's journey, many are taught that to be welcomed, one must bend, agree, and maintain peace, even at the cost of one's own inner stillness. But peace that is purchased with your silence is not a true peace. It is a quiet form of imbalance. To live for the approval of others is like chasing a horizon that always moves away from you. No matter how much you adapt, Some will see you differently. No matter how much you offer, it will never feel like enough for everyone. When you spend your life attempting not to disturb, not to cause friction, not to disappoint, you will inevitably disappoint the one being you are here to understand yourself. You quiet your truth not because it is incorrect, but because you fear others will not embrace it. But what of your own embrace? What of your own truth? Why does the comfort of everyone else become more important than your own connection to yourself? You must understand that to live from your own center is not an act of aggression. It is an act of returning to the being you were, before the world suggested you should be smaller, before doubt taught you to be unseen, before comparison suggested you should copy rather than create from within. To live with clarity is to reclaim what has always been yours, your voice, your awareness, your own fire. And this inner fire is not something to be ashamed of. It provides warmth, it offers light, and it illuminates what is untrue. There will always be those who misinterpret your strength. They may call your certainty ego, your boundaries a wall, and your directness a lack of softness. Let them. Their perception is a reflection of their own journey, not your responsibility. Your task is to remain aligned with what you know to be true, not with their opinion of it. You are not here to dim your own light so that others may feel brighter. This is not a contest to see who can become the most invisible. Life is not a journey to be lived in hiding. Begin to enter a space without asking if you have a right to be there. Speak without editing the words that arise from your soul. Breathe without needing permission. Exist without a feeling of guilt. When you do this, you do not become unkind. You become real. You cease to perform. You stop asking for forgiveness for simply being present. And that is when your life begins to feel free, even if it creates unease in others. Their discomfort is a sign of their own limits, not of your error. So stop apologizing for the space you occupy. Stop negotiating with your soul for the comfort of others. Stand firmly in your truth. Speak it with gentleness, but also with stillness. Let your presence be a statement not of ego, but of deep embodiment. The world does not need more agreeable, hesitant smiles. It needs more real, awake, and centered people who live from their core. Be one of them. Be yourself fully. Many people view love as a form of endless giving, of constant availability, of a life without any limits. They hold the belief that to truly care, one must always say yes, always be present for others, and never turn another being away. But love without awareness is not a complete love. It is a form of self-neglect disguised as devotion. They believe if they care, they must agree, be available, and never create distance. True love does not deplete. It should nourish both the giver and the receiver. And if you feel a constant exhaustion in the name of love, it may not be love. It is sacrifice without true consciousness. When you allow others to draw more from you than you can offer with a calm heart, when you let imbalanced behavior into your space-time, and again, you are not acting from a place of love. You are being untrue to your own well-being. Love does not mean you must allow everything. In fact, to love another from a deep place sometimes requires you to say no. It means you recognize the sacred space within yourself and choose not to let it be disturbed by the internal chaos of another's journey. Boundaries are not a form of rejection. They are not a way to punish. They are not a sign of coldness. A boundary is simply a clear and quiet understanding of where you end and another person begins. It is an expression of honesty. It communicates, this is what I am able to hold. This is what I am not. Without this understanding, even the most beautiful connections can become imbalanced, because one spirit begins to disappear under the weight of another's unaddressed needs. Many people hesitate to set these boundaries because they fear it will create distance. The truth is, people who genuinely respect you will also respect your needs. Boundaries do not harm connection, they protect it from imbalance. Without them, resentment can silently grow. And resentment is the quiet undoing of any relationship. It slowly turns what was once pure into something bitter. Love is not about being available at all times. It is not about fixing the lives of others. It is not about becoming the answer to every person's pain. Love is about presence, but presence is not the same as servitude. When you are clear about your own limits, you create a space for genuine connection to happen. You allow both people to be present as they truly are, not as dependent parts of each other, but as whole beings who have their own light. You must protect your own energy as you would a quiet flame. Not every hand that reaches toward you does so with care. Not every voice that asks for your time does so with a pure intention. You have the right and the responsibility to discern who is given access to your time, your focus, and your heart. This is not selfish. It is an act of wisdom. It is how you ensure that your love is not scattered, but is planted where it has the soil to grow. True love honors boundaries because true love wishes for you to be whole. It does not ask you to break yourself into smaller pieces in order to be accepted. It does not require your silence when your soul has something to say. When you love with awareness, you don't just give, you give with wisdom. You give in a way that keeps your own spirit intact. And in that state of balance, love is no longer a heavy weight, but a source of profound strength. There is a common perspective that to be firm is to be unkind or harsh. People sometimes see assertiveness as a form of aggression and strength as a kind of cruelty. But firmness is not about seeking to control others. It is about standing in your own clarity without needing to apologize for your own presence. When you speak your truth with firmness, you are not aiming to create a conflict. You are aiming to bring clarity to confusion. The truth holds a certain kind of stillness. It has no need to shout. It does not shake with uncertainty. It simply is. Many people avoid firmness because they fear how others will react to it. They are afraid that another will feel hurt, judged, or uneasy. But in the effort to protect another's temporary feelings, they step away from their own integrity. What they may forget is that avoiding a truth does not truly protect anyone. It simply keeps everyone in an unclear space. Sometimes the most compassionate action you can take is to tell someone something they are not ready to hear, but that they need to understand for their own growth. Your clarity might be the only true mirror they are offered. In a world filled with much noise and performance, clarity is a rare gift. People are often navigating a fog of unclear words, polite untruths, and unexpressed feelings. When you are able to speak with firmness, you help to clear that fog. You give others something real and stable to work with. They may not show appreciation for it in that moment. They might even push back against it. But on a deeper level, they will feel it. They recognize something that has become rare: a person who does not bend their truth just to be liked. To be firm is not to dominate. It is to have respect for yourself and the space that you inhabit. It is about holding your own time, your energy, and your truth as valuable. When your words are clear, people know where you stand. They no longer have to guess. They cease to play games. Your presence itself begins to create respect. Not because you are demanding it, but because you are embodying it. There is a quiet form of power in a person who can speak directly, with no aim to cause harm, but also with no fear of causing discomfort. They do not speak in order to please. They speak in order to clarify. They do not speak to have control. They speak to free themselves and others from pretending. A person like this brings a kind of peace to any space, not the peace of avoidance, but the peace that is born of truth. And truth ultimately has a way of calming the soul, even when it first shakes the ego. You are not responsible for the way people react to your truth. You are only responsible for delivering it with awareness and a calm heart. Speak from a place of presence, not from a place of reaction. Be rooted in what is real for you, not in what is easy. The more you practice this way of being, the more you will discover that firmness actually creates the space for a more honest connection. It clears the path of all obstacles. It lifts the weight of what is unspoken. So do not dim your clarity to avoid a reaction. Do not soften your truth until it becomes confusing. To be firm is not a failure of kindness. It is an act of service. It serves clarity. It serves growth. and it serves both your path and the paths of those around you. A clear voice that comes from a still mind can be a light in a very noisy and dark world. There is no greater service than that. Sometimes, what we call kindness is really just fear, wearing a more gentle name. You agree when you would prefer to say no. You remain silent when your own spirit wishes for you to speak. You permit what should not be permitted, and you call this being a good person. But when this kind of softness becomes a pattern of abandoning your own truth, it ceases to be a virtue and can become a source of harm, not just for you, but for the people who are in your life as well. When you allow imbalanced behavior to continue without being addressed, when you offer forgiveness again and again without any correction, when you absorb disrespect instead of meeting it with clarity, you are not avoiding a conflict. You are helping it to grow. By being soft in the face of what is not right, you silently grant it permission to continue. And what you permit, you support. What you support, you become entangled with. There are some people who will see your silence as a form of agreement. They will read your softness as a weakness and see it as a signal that they can push further. This does not make them evil. It is just a law of nature that any behavior that is not met with a boundary will continue to expand. It is like a weed in a garden. If it is not removed by its root, it will in time take the life from all of the plants that surround it. Your hesitation to create a clear boundary might seem to be the peaceful choice today, but it can create much deeper damage in the future. True peace is not the result of avoiding all confrontation. It is the result of establishing clarity. When you stay away from difficult conversations, when you find reasons to excuse patterns of manipulation, when you remain silent just to maintain a quiet surface, you are creating a very shallow form of calm on top of a very deep form of chaos. This chaos does not only affect you, it has an effect on your connections, on your surroundings, and on your sense of well-being. The issues that you do not confront will continue to disturb the space. You have to see that not all discomfort is a negative thing. There are times when the most healing action you can take is to create a clear boundary and to say, this far and no further. This is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of wisdom. It is the wisdom of knowing when softness has begun to enable and when strength needs to take its place. To be firm, to be clear, and to be honest. These are not acts of aggression. They are acts of cleansing. They create the space for truth to enter the room again. If your gentleness is used to protect what is imbalanced, then it is not truly helping. You do not save anyone by allowing them to continue patterns that cause harm. You only take away their chance to grow, and growth always begins when it meets resistance. People must feel a boundary to understand they have crossed one. When you no longer protect others from the natural results of their own actions, they finally have an opportunity to see themselves. So, observe closely where your softness is directed. Is it being used for healing, or is it enabling? Is it coming from a place of strength, or is it rooted in a fear of discomfort? You were not created to be a vessel for the imbalanced energy of others. You were created to be a mirror that can reflect your truth, even when that truth is not comfortable. The world does not require more people who are endlessly soft. It requires people who are awake, who are aware, and who are strong enough to say, this is not aligned with me. With a sense of calm, with clarity, and with quiet courage, there is a common misunderstanding that to be spiritual, wise, or at peace, one must learn to endure all things. Many believe that wisdom is about accepting what is wrong, being silent when there is injustice, and tolerating energies that deplete one's own soul. But wisdom is not the same as endurance. Wisdom is discernment. It is the ability to see with clarity what helps your own path and what hinders it. Tolerance that is practiced without discernment is not a form of strength. It is a surrender of your own inner clarity. There is a distinction between being patient and being passive. Patience is a form of power. It has an understanding of when to wait. It recognizes the natural timing of life. But passivity is what happens when you tell yourself that To say nothing is always the more enlightened path. Silence can be a sacred state, but not when its purpose is to avoid discomfort. Not when it is used to keep an outer peace while a storm is happening inside of you. There are moments when the most sacred action is to speak, to move away, or to say, enough. You are not required to accept all forms of behavior in order to seem wise or at peace. There is no great virtue in permitting others to disrespect your space again and again, all in the name of a spiritual kind of tolerance. Wisdom is not about becoming a path for others to walk on. It is about standing in your own truth with such stillness that no one else has the power to define your own value. When your energy is constantly being depleted, when your own peace is constantly being disturbed, to step away from the source is not a weakness. It is wisdom taking action. There is a quiet form of arrogance in the belief that you must withstand everything in order to prove that you are evolved. True spiritual maturity is not measured by the amount of pain you are able to tolerate in silence. It is measured by the clarity with which you can see what is no longer in alignment with your path, and the grace with which you can let it go. Sometimes, walking away from a situation is not about abandoning another person. It is about making the choice not to abandon yourself. Many people stay in situations that are imbalanced because they are afraid of seeming cold or unkind if they leave. But to choose your own peace over the dysfunction of another is not an act of unkindness. It is an act of healing. Not everything is worthy of your attention. Not every conflict is your own to resolve. There are times when the most powerful action you can take is to take a step back, not with a bitter heart, but with a still mind, and to permit life to move on without your participation. The act of letting go is frequently misunderstood. People often believe it is a form of failure, but in reality, it is very often the highest expression of wisdom. It is the understanding of when your presence is no longer of service, when your efforts are being wasted, and when your soul is asking for the space to breathe again. Tolerance, when it is extended too far, can become the soil in which resentment will grow, and resentment will slowly poison a heart that once only wished to love purely. So, do not mistake tolerance for spiritual strength. Real wisdom knows when to say no. Real wisdom knows how to detach. Real wisdom is the protector of peace, not just for oneself, but for the entire space around it. You were not meant to carry everything. You were meant to carry only what belongs to your own path. Let the rest go. It is not wisdom to stay in a place where your soul is not thriving. Sometimes the highest truth is not spoken in words, but in the quiet act of your departure. Strength is a quality that is frequently misunderstood. Many believe it is about being loud, forceful, or unshaken by anything. But true strength is not about controlling others or demonstrating power. It is something much deeper and much quieter. It arises from within. It has no need to shout or to defend itself. It does not look for attention. It is the stillness that lies beneath the surface of the water, a grounded presence that cannot be moved by all the noise in the world. There is a type of power that does not express itself through aggressive action, but through a state of calmness, of clarity, and of courage. A person who has found their true strength does not need to win arguments, to raise their voice, or to prove that they are right. Their presence itself is enough to communicate for them. Like a tree that has very deep roots, they are able to bend when they need to, and to adapt when it is required, but they are never pulled up by the storms of life. This flexibility is not a weakness. It is what we call resilience. Many people mistake being harsh, distant, or cold as an indication of being strong, but harshness is very often born from fear, from old pain, and from a need to feel in control. Real strength comes from a place of understanding, of compassion, and of being connected to a stable place within yourself. It is completely possible to be firm and not be cruel, to be clear without being sharp, and to hold your ground without becoming inflexible or bitter. Strength is not about constructing walls around your heart. It does not mean you must push people away or become numb to your own feelings. It means knowing who you are, what is true for you, and making the choice not to betray that understanding, even when it is difficult or uncomfortable. It means you show up with your whole self, not hiding, not shrinking, and not performing. It is a state of presence, not a performance for others. People who embody this real kind of strength can often go unnoticed in the beginning. They do not demand to be the center of attention, but when they choose to speak, others find themselves listening. They do not force their will onto others, but their decisions have a certain weight. This is because their strength is not taken from their ego or from a sense of pride. It is rooted in something that is much more durable, in awareness, in integrity, and in being fully alive without a need to be in control of all things. You can be gentle and at the same time be strong. You can feel all of your emotions deeply and still make powerful decisions. You can be kind and still maintain firm boundaries. These qualities are not in opposition to one another. They are designed to support each other. The most powerful individuals are those who are able to live with an open heart and a stable spine. They are not controlled by their emotions, nor do they try to turn their emotions off. They move through life with both strength and sensitivity. So do not waste your energy trying to appear strong. Do not try to cover your softness with a hard outer shell. Allow your strength to arise from truth, not from tension, from a grounded awareness, not from an effort to protect yourself with harshness. There is a great power in being able to be both soft and unshakable at the same time. The world is in need of more of that kind of strength, quiet, calm, and unwavering. In this world, it is not always the gentle and agreeable person who receives respect. While kindness is something that is admired from afar, it is strength that has the power to command our attention. People may offer a smile in response to your softness, but they will listen to your firmness. They will pay attention when your words arise from a place of true presence, not when they come from a need to be liked by others. The more you adjust yourself to fit into the comfort zones of others, the more invisible you may become. It is not arrogance that truly earns respect. It is a sense of authenticity that is wrapped in a quiet confidence. You can speak with a soft voice and still carry an immense power. The power is not found in the volume of your voice, but in the weight that is behind it. When you are rooted in the truth of who you are, when you no longer are seeking validation from other people, your presence itself begins to speak much more loudly than your words ever could. People may not be able to find the words to explain it, but they will feel it. There will be a very subtle change in the way that they interact with you. You are no longer trying to gain acceptance. You are simply being. And that single fact changes the entire dynamic. Most people spend their energy trying to be liked. They give too many explanations. They give too much of their time. And they apologize too often, all in an effort to be seen as good, as kind, and as worthy. But this constant habit of bending the self will never lead to a deep form of respect. It more often invites others to take advantage or to dismiss you. When you do not value your own boundaries, it is difficult for others to do so. But when you stand with firmness, speak with clarity, and remain unmoved by all the noise on the outside, something begins to shift. Respect enters the space even before you have spoken a word. Presence is something that is built in silence, in stillness, and in being consistent. It is not about being loud or about dominating a space. It is about knowing where you are standing, what it is that you value, and not being shaken by every new opinion that comes your way. You do not have to fight to create a space for yourself when you are in alignment from within. People can feel the difference between a person who is performing confidence and a person who is living it. One of them is very fragile, the other is unshakable. You must come to see that trying to receive everyone's approval is a trap with no end. The more you are chasing acceptance, the more you lose the connection to your true self. But when you begin to honor your own truth, others may not always agree with you, but they will be able to feel your steadiness. They will have more trust in you, even in silence, because strength has a language that is all its own. Respect is not related to fear. It is not about having control. It is about being in alignment. When your words, your actions, and your presence are all arising from the same source, from a stable core that is within you, other people can sense that. They have a feeling that you are not easily swayed. They know that you mean the things you say. And in a world that is so full of empty noise and shallow charm, this kind of depth has a magnetic quality. It does not ask to be given attention. It earns that attention simply by existing in truth. So do not mistake being respected for being liked. They are not the same thing. One of them may ask you to bend. The other will ask you to rise. When you cease to be overly soft just to avoid any discomfort, and instead you learn to move from your own center with a quiet strength, people will start to treat you differently. Not because you have demanded it, but because you have finally become someone who does not require validation to feel whole. Every day, life offers you choices. Most of these choices seem small. When they appear on the surface, a moment. When you are silent, when you feel you should speak. A nod of the head when you feel you should shake it. A smile when your own spirit is not feeling at ease. But behind all of these small choices is a much larger decision that is being made. Will you honor the truth that is inside of you? Or will you reach for what feels comfortable? One of these paths requires you to stand with stillness and with clarity, even when the world all around you is shaking. The other path invites you to bend, to become smaller, and to avoid all of the friction that real growth will always bring. To choose the path of truth is not always a dramatic action. It very often looks like walking away in a quiet manner, saying no without offering an explanation, or setting a boundary without feeling a sense of guilt. These are not actions of rebellion. They are actions of alignment, but they can feel uncomfortable because we are so often conditioned to avoid any kind of disruption. We are taught that it is better to be agreeable, to keep things peaceful, and to fit in with others. But a life that is built upon a false sense of peace will never provide you with a true form of rest. It will only teach you how to survive, and never how to truly live. The path of comfort is very seductive. It tells you that you should wait. It says, perhaps tomorrow you will speak up. Perhaps the next time you will say how you truly feel. And in this way, the days will pass, and then the years. You begin to carry the weight of all your unspoken truths, of all the emotions you have swallowed, of all the decisions that you made to protect your comfort, but not to protect your soul. Over a long period of time, this comfort becomes a kind of cage. And the longer that you remain inside it, the more it can begin to feel like a home, even while you know that something inside of you is slowly beginning to fade. The path of truth, on the other hand, can feel very raw. It does not always present itself with polite words or at a gentle time. There are times when it can arrive like a storm, and it will shake everything that has been settled. It may cost you some relationships, some positions, and some illusions. But what it offers you in return is something that is much greater. It gives you back yourself. When you start to choose your truth again and again, you will begin to remember who you really are, underneath all of the layers that you have built up in order to be accepted. That process of remembering can be painful at the very beginning, but it is the thing that will become your freedom. The discomfort of walking in your truth is temporary. It can sting, it can stretch you, and it can burn away all of the parts of you that were never truly real. But what is left behind is a version of you that no longer requires approval from others simply to breathe. You start to walk not to follow the path of others, but to lead your own path. Your energy becomes clear. Your presence becomes something undeniable. You might lose some people, but you will never again lose yourself. You have to understand that your truth will not always be welcomed by others. There are some people who are invested in your silence. They have grown very accustomed to your compliance. When you begin to change, they will resist it. But that resistance is not your problem to solve. It is their own invitation to grow. You are not here in this life to carry the comfort of other people on your shoulders, while your own soul is suffocating. Your only duty is to remain honest with yourself and to live in a way that is in accordance with that honesty. The rest is not in your control. So, every time that you come to a point where there is a choice, you can ask yourself this: will this choice make me more liked, or will it make me more real? Will this choice bring comfort to my fear, or will it elevate my soul? Your entire life is being shaped at these small and invisible crossroads. Choose the path of truth, even when it makes you shake, and even when it costs you something. Because in the end, all comfort will fade away, but your truth will build a kind of peace that nothing in the world can ever touch. That kind of peace is not something that is given to you. It is something that is earned through every single brave choice you make to honor the person you truly are. There is a great peace that can be found in gentleness. But gentleness without any clarity simply becomes confusion. Stop being soft with everyone. Instead, you can become still, like a great mountain, silent, strong, and unmoving in your own truth. When you do that, your kindness will have a real power, your presence will have a certain gravity, and your life will no longer be a simple reaction. It will become a conscious response to existence itself.